This podcast is brought to you by you, because I would not be able to do this stuff without any of you out there. So I want to thank you for all of your support and your love and everything that you have given to this podcast, to the YouTube channels, social media, the Discord, and all the platforms that you find this Kitty Fox on. Thank you for all that you do. Greetings and salutations to all of you lovely, fluffy, non-fluffy, equally lovely and beautiful listeners out there. I said lovely twice, that's redundant, but whatever, we're doing it. How's it going? How are you? How is your week going? I hope it is lovely as much as you are. That's 3 times, that's redundant. I made up a new word. Okay, so we're off to a great start. And I have a cat that I have so graciously invited to my lap during this little session that we're having. And I'm calling it a session because it's a sort of a special edition podcast that I've decided that I want to start doing. So, as you can see by the title, today we will be starting our very small but I think very intimate childhood memories series of podcasts, which I won't be doing every week, but I will do from time to time as I recall memories and look back in my little notebooks and journals that I have from over the years. Um, I have a little fun fact for you. I actually have all of my journals from age 12 to now. They're all in a drawer in my bedroom right now. But yeah, it's really cool to see, like from, I guess it's like from puberty age, I suppose, when I was really taking writing seriously to now and getting stories and memories from those and how it just all applies. But some of the stuff I'm not going to share for obvious reasons, because when you're a prepubescent teen to a pubescent teen to high school age, there's some things you just don't share with the world. So we'll keep those under wraps. But yeah, that's what we're here for today. Before we get started, not a whole lot to report this week. It's just been a sort of an interesting week at work, and the busyness, hi Archie, and the busyness of life, as it were. As a matter of fact, one of the things that kind of spurred on this idea of childhood memories was my mother recently gave me a whole stack, and I mean stack like inches thick, of photos from my childhood, and I was flipping through them and going, "Wow, these are all crazy." Like to look back on, and some of these pictures I haven't seen for a fat minute, and a lot of them I don't remember, as a matter of fact. But there are some that I do remember. For example, I'm not gonna show any of them just because of privacy reasons, but there is a handful, and when I say handful, I mean at least 5 photos of me on my, I want to say it was my 4th or 3rd birthday, something like that. I was very young. And I was, okay, so picture this. I was at my grandparents' house. We had a little party from the context of the pictures. Um, like there's pictures of the cake, there's pictures of my grandparents and my great grandparents and my parents and brother and stuff, and there's cake and all that presents involved. And in one of the photos, there's a picture of me in a Winnie the Pooh onesie. Now, if that right there isn't a dead giveaway for what you're seeing now, Kitty Fox, then I don't know what is. I was very much a fan of Winnie the Pooh growing up, thanks to my family. My grandma, rest her soul, was a big proponent in that. Like, she collected all the Winnie the Pooh memorabilia. My grandma was a collector, and she had all the memorabilia, she had all the ornaments, she had all the figurines, the books, everything. Like, I'm talking like the original print books, which we actually got. And she got us all the movies and all the kids books that came out later, and ornaments, you name it. She was a collector. She was really big into Winnie the Pooh, and I am too, like still to this day. I love it. And it really did shape a lot of my sort of perspective on life, as our as sort of a wannabe carefree individual who's very jolly and cherub like, that is Winnie the Pooh. But anyway, back to the picture. So I'm in a Winnie the Pooh onesie in many photos. And what's even more interesting is my grandmother had this bear, this giant stuffed bear, and it wasn't a Pooh bear. It was just a big teddy bear, and like the ones that you win at a carnival or that you see at Walmart or something, right? It was one of those, but it was like circa 1970s, so it was kind of had old style to it. But I can remember distinctly loving that bear to death because there are many pictures of me in the Winnie the Pooh onesie cuddling that giant bear as a 4 year old or a 3 year old, right? And I would often, cause so the bear always sat in like a sitting position, and it always wore like a cute little sweater. As a matter of fact, my grandma, love her to death, miss her, she would change out the sweater to fit different seasons. So like Christmas sweater, sort of a spring type sweater. Sometimes she put a t-shirt on the bear, and it's probably the size of a I don't know how to describe. It's like 4 feet tall if you were to stand it up. It was a big bear. But I would often recline myself on that bear as a child, and like sort of just like lay back on it and just like treat it as like a chair, right? And this happened quite a bit. I am remembering very fondly that bear and how much I loved it. And like not only am I in my Winnie the Pooh onesie cuddling this bear, there are many pictures without the onesie, cuddling the bear. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting that I bring this thing up is because when I chatted with my mom about these pictures, she said I showed her some of the photos of me and the bear, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that bear is still up in the upstairs of your grandparents' house." And because my grandpa is still alive, right? He's kicking it at 96, right? So, and I was like, I felt like I was a kid again when she said that. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that he still has the bear?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Do you want it?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah, yeah, give it to me," right? So she's like, "Okay. Next time I'm over at their house, I will, I'll get it for you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." So very soon I shall have that bear, that same giant plushy teddy bear in my house. And it's going to be a great day when that happens. I cannot wait to have that thing again. And, just kind of have all those memories flood back and give the bear a new home here because I think he deserves it. So yeah, that's kind of what spurred on this whole thing about childhood memories, and I already gave you a good amount so far. So, but yeah, going off of that, I think that's a good segue. I have a little list here of memories that I thought of this week. Oh, okay, so this is not really a childhood memory, but it's just something interesting that I thought as a kid, and then I just realized not 2 days ago. Okay. So, when I was little, I loved Looney Tunes, and this is going to make sense in a second, okay? A lot of us, I'm sure, watched Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny and all that. And one of my favorite cartoons in sort of the Looney Tunes universe was Duck Dodgers. So if any of you out there are familiar with Duck Dodgers, it's a Daffy Duck's character where he's a spaceman or like a space cadet sort of character, and he goes off and he's I claim this planet in the name of the Earth, right? And he's on Mars, right? And who shows up but Marvin the Martian? And he's Marvin's like, I claim this planet in the name of Mars. Isn't that lovely? So some of you out there know what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you don't know, look it up. Duck Dodgers and Marvin the Martian. It's a whole slew of cartoons will come up. But anyway, also another tell as to my furriness is loving cartoons with anthropomorphic animals, right? As many of us sort of have that door into it. But anyway, so I put something together, and I'm not ashamed to say it, but I'm also kind of little hesitant to say, I learned something very, very important the other day. Uh, so I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about space stuff because I like space stuff, and I've always liked solar talk, as it were. I've been a fan of I've always liked the space shuttle launches. Like I went to Kennedy Space Center when I was a kid, that whole thing. Anyway, they were talking about space stuff on this podcast, and they were talking about Mars and sort of like the inhabitants of Mars and how it kind of relates to Earth living and so on, nerd stuff like that. And they were talking about Mars, and then they used the word Martian, and then something clicked in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, Martians are inhabitants of Mars, which makes total sense because of the name Martian, right? Mars, Martian, right? Now, why does that matter? I thought my entire life, and I kid you not, this is where the click moment came in. My entire life, I thought that Martian just meant alien. And yes, it does, but not generally, right? I always thought Martian and alien were synonymous, right? I always thought that you could use Martian in any context of space when it came to extraterrestrial living. I was wrong for many years, like 20 plus years, not realizing that Martian actually meant Mars dweller or Mars inhabitant. And I was driving, by the way, while I was listening to this podcast, and I was like, I kind of sort of punched my steering wheel, and I was like, I can't believe me, brain. Me, brain, are big, strong, dumb. That's how dumb my brain is. Like, after 25 plus years of not realizing what Martian actually meant, that's what it means. Mars dweller. What? Do you ever have one of those moments where you're just like, oh, that's what that means? Like, I've had that happen with certain contexts of jokes, even. Like, my brother and I, growing up, we really loved comedy. We listened to a lot of stand-up comedy growing up, and we liked comedy movies, and, comedy was like a really big thing in our household. We watched Monty Python as a kid, as kids, as inappropriate as that can be sometimes. But, we watched like the Drew Carey Show and the King of Queens and Everybody Loves Raymond and Seinfeld. We liked sitcoms, right? And there, I can point to a slew of jokes that have come from different sitcoms from my upbringing. And then I'll be like, within the last few years, even of my life, talking like these past few years from right now to the last few, there I will be thinking about just like a little moment from a TV show, like, oh yeah, I remember that scene from Seinfeld, because I'll see something that reminds me of that particular scene, and then I'll think about the scene in my head, and then think about like the bits and jokes that are going on in that scene, and then it'll like hit me like click, boom, oh my gosh, that's what that joke meant. Now I get it, right? Um, yeah, I can't think of any particular examples at the moment, but it happens more often than I care to admit. Like, it's happened quite a bit in the last few years of just like, oh my gosh, that joke from that specific sitcom scene or that stand-up routine or whatever, or that movie, that's what that joke meant. That's what it was referring to. This is what, yeah. Okay, well, here's one. Um, there's a there's a there's a scene that I just thought of this. There's a scene from Whose Line Is It Anyway? I'm talking the American version with Drew Carey, right? Um, there's a scene where Wayne and I think it's Wayne Brady and Colin Mockery, they're doing props. And if you don't know anything about Whose Line, this is probably going to be completely lost on you. But anyway, Whose Line Is It Anyway? They have props, these like weird, random objects that they have to improvise a scene out of, right? It could be like a lampshade, it could be like a big foam padding thing that looks like nothing, and they have to make up something that, improvise something on the spot that thing looks like, or put it into a context of something for comedy, right? So anyway, you get the point. They have like these cylindrical things, like they look like lampshades, and Colin puts one of them on the floor, and then Wayne calls down to the quote unquote well, or the prop that looks like a well, right? And he goes, "Baby Jessica," and then the whole audience goes, "Ah!" And for the life of me, I never understood that. I never knew what that was. Turns out, I learned last week it was an actual news story from like years ago. Like there was a baby or like a young girl who had fallen down a well, and her name was Jessica. And I was like, oh, so that was based on a real story. I did not know that, right? So yeah, that's an example, though tragic. That example. That's an example of something that I learned recently that was from a comedy show. Turned out to be a bit, and sort of a cruel bit, but you get the point. It's like, oh, that's what that meant, and you just start to learn these things. But I don't know. Does that happen to any of you guys? Does that happen to anybody else? Where it's like you're walking along or driving along, or just one day you're going about your business and then you'll see something that reminds you of something else, and then it'll sort of like connect some dots and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a revelation. Just woof, there it is. That's what that meant. Like, oh, uh-huh. Like that happens socially too. Like I'll think back on some social interactions I've had over the years, and even as a young adult, and I'll think about it and I'll go, wait, I think that person was actually being rude to me and I did not know. Or that person was being very sarcastic and I took them seriously. Or they were joking with me and I didn't get the joke, right? So it happens. I don't know. Does that happen to you? It's happened to me quite a bit, actually. But so yeah, that's just an example. I think a good segue into the actual meat and potatoes, as they say, into our episode today, which is childhood memories. So um, I want to sort of start off by talking about some. I'll sort of lay the groundwork here, okay? Um, a lot of my childhood, I like to call the how do I want to pronounce this? It was a it was sort of a fantasy 70s childhood. And what do I mean by that? I basically grew up in the context of the 70s in a weird way. Now, I was born in the late 90s, so obviously no, but no, I mean in the context of technology, especially mannerisms, traditions, uh, yeah, you name it. Like we had the old tube TVs, right? My brother and I, our first TV was a UHF dial click TV, right? Which was the old family room TV from like when my mom was younger, that was our bedroom TV. And it had the flipper dial where it was like the channel flipper, right? You had to like turn the dial and it'd go to different channels, right? Same with the volume. You pulled a pin to turn it on, and then the pin that you pulled was also the volume, right? Kind of cool. So we we had CD players, but we didn't have I mean, well, okay. We had CD players, so that's sort of new, I guess. But um, my brother and I, when iPods were a big thing, like we're talking iPod Nano days, right? And I'm not talking about like the old school iPods. I'm talking like the little squatty nanos that people had back in school. Um, the kids had iPods, right? The kids of our age had iPods. My brother and I, we had cassette players. We had Walkman, right? Even though they've been out of fashion by that point about 20 years, it didn't matter. We still had Walkman. We had tapes. And we also had like portable CD players, but like, tapes didn't skip when you walked. So, we used tapes. Um, we had VCRs for a very long time. As a matter of fact, literally not that long ago, and I mean within the last number of days as I'm recording this, I literally set up a VCR in my parents' house. I don't know why. My mom was like, "Hey, I got a new CD. I don't even know it anymore. I got a new VCR and DVD combo. We set it up in the basement, but we can't get it to work. Can you go and fix it?" And I'm like, "What year is it? Like, I looked at my mom and I was like, "Hey, you're making me laugh." She's like, "Why?" I was like, "Because you told me to set up your VCR." And she's like, "Oh." And then she just kind of rolled her eyes and she said, "Go fix it." I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I went and fixed it. Plug, play, done, easy. I still got it, I guess. But my parents still run on older technology, right? And that's what we had growing up. It was older technology. For example, another example, we had dial-up internet until I was 14. So that would have been in the 2010s. Yeah. Ooh, wow. Yeah, we had dial-up. Like our first instance of high-speed internet was satellite internet when I was in high school. Okay. Up until that point, we had dial-up. Now, when we got satellite internet, I finally got the chance to start online gaming, and that's great. But we also had a thing that was called bandwidth, right? And I would be the culprit to run it out constantly. I was running out the bandwidth constantly on our satellite internet because I was gaming and watching YouTube and all this other stuff back in the day, right? So I would get grounded. I would get yelled at. I would get all kinds of punishment happened and came my way because I was the one who was running out the bandwidth constantly every single month. And we had to wait the next month for it to renew, and then the bandwidth would like refill, and then it was like a monthly thing, right? And I never really understood it, but even that was kind of sucked because it wasn't that great of a connection anyway. Um, that's kind of what you get living out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, we had dial up until I was in high school, which I couldn't believe that that was still a thing. And everybody else had like broadband and all this other stuff that was coming out or had been out for like 10 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize how much I missed out on, right? So yeah, I had a very like would be 70s upbringing, as it were. Very old school, like I said, traditional technology, and values too. Like, we always sat at the table for dinner and, always said grace. We always wore like nice clothes for church on Sunday. My mom always ironed my shirt every Saturday night, before church, and we go to church all dressed up on Sunday morning, shiny shoes and everything. And yeah, we also dressed for school. I mean, I was homeschooled, but we still dressed for school. Like you had to be up and you had to be dressed presentable enough to be doing school, right? Now, my parents weren't strict. I just want to point that out there. My parents were not strict people. They were firm when they had to be. They were very disciplinary when they had to be, but they were also very fair people in their punishments, in their discipline, in their ways and traditions, and I really respect them for that. But well, before I get to that, setting the table a little bit more. Probably the main reason why I call it a '70s upbringing is because mm, I feel like I'm one of the last kids ever who heard the words, wait until your father gets home, right? Wait until just you wait until your dad gets home, he'll get you. Like if you smarted off and you heard those words, it struck fear into my brother and I. Oh my gosh. Mom would say that, you knew you screwed up. Like that's how that's how the parental dynamic was in my house growing up was wait till your dad gets home. You knew you messed up. My brother and I knew we messed up if we heard those words. And thankfully, we didn't hear them very often because I like to think that we were pretty good kids. But, you know, I, I maintain I feel like we're the last kids. My brother and I were the last kids to ever hear those words in that context of discipline. So, yeah, very very would be '70s upbringing in that. But going back to my parents, like I said, they're very firm and fair. Um, but the I think the main thing, not only were they like super loving and graceful and very charitable, and like they did it very well in my opinion. um and they're also, by the way, still together. They just celebrated Oh gosh, what did they celebrate recently? Am I blanking? It would be whoa. Is it really that long? 35 years. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. Like they just recently celebrated 35 years of wedded bliss. Can you believe that? Ah, man, what does that say? They're still together. I mean, they're 35 years long at this point. So yeah, 1990. That's 35. That's crazy. Wow. Anyway, just a little tangent there, but anyway, yeah. So they're still together and very happy, and I'm really happy to see that. I'm glad to see that. But I would say the main takeaway that I got from my parents, like one of the most important values that they instilled in me from a young age to now, is think for yourself, be your own person, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, right? So they're very big proponents of critical thinking, of logic, of you know your your sense of self and identity, right? And in a way, they prepared my brother and I to go out into the world and like test things, question things, experience new things, go out and find an adventure, take something apart and put it back together, figure out how it works, like read something for yourself. Don't just take people at their word and their face value, you know, and like, have a healthy amount of trust, but at the same time verify, right? That's kind of what I think that's the biggest thing that they pushed on my brother and I as far as like their values. And I am honestly super thankful for that, because if it wasn't for them and their teaching of that, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. Like, I learned a lot from them in that. And I have to say, I think about it in the context of the furry fandom. And I think about the day that I found the furry fandom and decided to join this community, which is when I was a sophomore in high school, all those years ago. I like to think that joining the furry fandom, even at such a young age, was one of the first major life changing decisions that I ever made in my life. And it's because of their guidance and the way that they brought me and my brother up is what led me to this. And look at it now. It's going great. Like I still love this community and I'm still in it, and I'm still like just very much in love with it as much as I was like many years ago. And I somehow knew back then, there was just something inside me back then, even at the age of 15, that this was right. Like this was something that I knew I wanted to do. It's something that I knew I wanted to pursue. It's something that I knew just fit this weird, like uh like I don't even know what to call it. This forestation of a brain that I have, like this this conundrum building trundle sack of a cerebral bag that I have in my skull. It just fit, right? It's one of those things. The furry fandom is one of those things that just clicked for me. That's one of those click moments for me. And even at age 15, I just knew it. And it's because of my parents and their guidance and how they taught us from such a young age that think for yourself and go after something. And here we are. And look where we are now. Like, thanks, mom and dad. Like, I know, I know you don't understand it. I know you don't get the fandom that much. And I know that, I know it's an awkward subject to bring up whenever we do, but if you somehow are listening to this, but just know that it's because of your guidance, the way that you taught me personally, is why I'm here today and why I feel so strongly about this community, and I want to see good and I want to continue in it and like just enjoy it to the fullest, and also, bring nothing but good from it. So, yeah, thank you, mom and dad, for that. I appreciate you. Oh man, I had a lot of notes here, and I'm just I'm going all over the place here. Um, so I'm not going to be able to cover, I don't think, everything because we're already at 30 minutes here, but I'll just give you a couple of nuggets of some memories that I have from my past. I'll tell you about my first memory ever. My first memory, and I actually realized this not too long ago. It sort of just resurfaced I would say a couple years ago at this point. Um, I was thinking about it. I'm like, what is my first memory? I can't think of anything past this one particular point that I honestly, before that, like, it's just darkness. It's blank. Like, there's nothing there. Um, I want to say that I was about 2 years old. I would say three at the oldest. I say 2 years old because I was still in a crib. I remember the crib. So let me set the scene for you. Um, the bedroom that I grew up in, which a lot of you have seen on my YouTube channel. If you go way back some of my old videos on the main channel, you'll see like this horrendous room with like these yellow walls and like a giant window. That was the bedroom that I grew up in, right? Um, so context, uh, that room that I just described, that show up in old YouTube videos on my channel, was covered in sheep and lambs. Okay, sheep and lamb wallpaper, because it was technically like the nursery or the baby's room, right? Started out as my brother's room when he was born, and then he grew out of it, and then he moved to the next room, and then I grew into that room. So yeah, lambs all over the wall, plushies everywhere, which is another tell. Plushies. Um, and the bassinet or the crib that I was in was right in the middle of the room. So nice little cross ventilation. There's a ceiling fan above my head. And I'm laying in the crib, and I'm laying on my back, right? I'm laying on my back, and then I hear somebody coming in the room. And I look over, and it's my brother. My brother at the time, let's see, if I was 2 years old, he would have been about five, maybe four or five some of the time. And he takes two of my favorite stuffed animals, Beanie Babies, actually. One of them is a Beanie Baby, the other one is a knockoff Beanie Baby, right? And he starts dancing them on the crib's rail in front of me. And I remember laughing and smiling at him dancing the Beanie Babies on the front of my crib. And he's like making them do like a little dance, and he's singing and stuff. And then my mom comes in and sort of intercepts him, like, come on, let's go do something else. Your brother's trying to sleep. I don't know if that's exactly what she said, but that's, I imagine, what happened, right? I don't remember any words that were spoken. I just remember laying in my crib and watching my brother dance these little critters, these little Beanie Baby critters, on the front of my crib and singing, right? And from there, it's like darkness, blank, nothing until probably age 4 or 5, right? I'm not going to tell you about that memory that I remember next, because that's kind of, yeah, it has to do with cleanliness, but yeah, we'll skip that one. But anyway, so that was my first memory. That's what I remember very vividly as a very young lad. I think I'll save the next one for the next memory podcast, but I'll give you one more. How about that? Um, it's kind of funny. I wrote down Roadrunner haircut. That's the note that I put down. And at first I looked at it like, what does that mean? Roadrunner haircut. I remember. So when I was little, and as a matter of fact, still to this day, uh, my mom would cut my brother's hair and my hair, right? Which was cool. She saved a lot of money for barbering and taking us to salons or whatever you did. My mom, very creative person. As a matter of fact, I point to her a lot of the time for my love for art. My mom is an artist, even though she doesn't want to admit it. She is a fantastic crafter. She can draw really well. Like, she doesn't realize that her art skills are top notch, right? So, little quick tangent here. My mom used to be a Sunday school teacher for many years, and she taught grades. I want to say ages, say 4 to 6, somewhere in there. It was kind of her specialty for teaching. Anyway, she went out of her way to make props, sceneries, activity books, like crafting like activities. One time they had a whole like outdoor camping theme for a week at Sunday school, and she made an artificial campfire out of paper mache, tissue paper, and a fan. Like, lady is talented, and she doesn't want to admit it. So, mom, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for singing your praises too hard, but anyway, talented, so freaking talented. So yeah, she can draw. She once made an entire like replica sort of Noah's Ark. It was like a big deal. She made all the animals 2x2s. That ark is still somewhere. I can't remember where it is, but anyway, I think it's oh, you know what? I gave it to my childhood best friend. That's what happened to it. But anyway, that was a tangent. So naturally, she has a steady hand, right? So that being said, she has a steady hand, so she took her art to barbering and haircutting and styling and all that kind of thing. So from the day that my brother turned one and then the day that I turned one, we got our first haircuts. Cool. Um, and from that point on, as a matter of fact, even to this day, my mom cuts my hair, right? She cut my hair, as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago at this point, as I'm recording this. But yeah, she just I have my hair's kind of long right now, so she just kind of cut my split ends, and that was it. But yeah, she has done almost every single haircut in my life. There was a haircut that I had done professionally only because I was doing a hair donation at the time, and I needed a very specific length. Not that she couldn't do it. It was just, the person that I went to specialized in hair donations, so they knew exactly what to cut and where to cut. And yeah, that's another tangent. But anyway, so mom cuts our hair, right? She still cuts mine to this day. That being said, back in those days of being young and a kid, probably age we'll say 4 to like 10 maybe. As I mentioned earlier, we were big fans of Looney Tunes cartoons, and my brother and I, especially my brother, more so, but my brother and I really liked the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote cartoons. Right, those were some of our favorites. Like anytime Roadrunner was on, we were in front of the TV. One of our favorite Looney Tunes, cartoons ever. So this is gonna sound really cheesy, but I think it's appropriate for this podcast. So if you recall from those cartoons, the Roadrunner ran really fast, hence the name. And he would always leave like a plume of smoke every time he ran, like off screen. He'd do his little meep meep and then just like run away, and then you just see like a puff of smoke, and then like you see the trail of smoke from when he ran away, right? And part of my mom's routine was after she would give us haircuts, she would douse us in baby powder because of itching and irritation, and yeah. So that was part of the routine. So we'd get our haircuts, we'd go out on the front porch, and then she would throw the baby powder on us just to make sure that we weren't going to get irritated or itchy or anything. And then we would say, "Okay, Mom, are you done? Can we do Roadrunner?" And she's like, "Yep, go ahead." And then my brother and I would just take off through the yard, and then we'd leave. We'd leave a trail of white smoke behind us, and we would impersonate the Roadrunner, doing the meep meeps and all that stuff. And we try, of course we made a race out of it because you're brothers. You got to race each other, right? But no, every single haircut, that was our favorite part was, "Mom, can we do Roadrunner? Let's do Roadrunner." And she's like, "Okay, let's go outside." And, sometimes I know this now. Sometimes she would put a little extra baby powder on there just so we could have a little bit more fun. Sometimes we'd go back for seconds. We'd like, "Mom, can we have more?" And she's like, "Okay." And she put more baby powder on us, and we'd go for a second round. And yeah, my brother and I were we were big fans of that. That was one of our favorite things for haircut day. We kind of struggled to get into the routine of haircuts a little bit because when you're a kid, it's scary. It's kind of scary to experience a first time haircutting. But yeah, I mean, eventually you get used to it, and you gotta make some fun out of it. So that was our fun. Was the Roadrunner, the plume of smoke, white smoke Roadrunner that we turned it into. So yeah, so one of my favorite memories as a kid growing up was that, and in a way, it brought my brother and I close, because we got to share that together. Just for the record, I ran faster than he did. So, bro, if you're listening to this, you know it's true. So yeah, um, those are I think a good handful of childhood memories that I wanted to share with you today. Pretty good amount of time too, I have to say. I'm very pleased with how this turned out. Honestly, I honestly wasn't sure how it would turn out or how it would play out, but you know, there were certain things I'm like, "Ah, I don't know if I should share that, or I don't know if I should go into that, in context." But I'm glad that I did. I'm recounting these stories and going through these memories, and it's all because of my mom having to dig out those old pictures that just kind of gave me this idea. So I think I'll keep this going because I got a lot of memories to share, and I think you all would like to hear them. So if you like this, which I hope you did, then there will be more in the future. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you again for listening if you've gotten this far. And yeah, I really appreciate your attentiveness and just, hearing these stories and, letting me kind of recount these memories. And even though it's a different kind of episode this week, I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. But yeah, um, I think that's gonna be the podcast. I think we'll end it there. So, to all of you listening, always remember the Latin phrase "Sic Parvis Magna," greatness from small beginnings. From where you started, just like I did in the crib and having Beanie Babies dancing on the rail, to where you are now, sitting here now telling you about that memory. There is greatness in every step that you take in your life, from journey's beginning to journey's end, whether you create the greatness or whether it is found along your way. It is there to be had and to hold. Never forget those who brought you up and those who continue to stand by you to this day, just like family, just like your brother, just like your sister, or just like your non-binary sibling, or even your closest friends. Don't forget to ever tell them. Don't forget to tell them that you love them and that you appreciate them, and because you never know what tomorrow will bring. And in the same way, remember to be you, be yourself, be compassionate with yourself, be loving to yourself, be kind to yourself, because no one can be you except for you. And that's not something you should ever apologize for. No one can ever tell you who you can and can't be or what you can and can't do. Never forget your sense of self, just like my parents taught me, and to think for yourself, just like the way they taught me. Because there's never been anyone like you, there's no one like you right now, and there will be no one ever like you in the future. So only you can do the things the way that you can, the way you do best. So never forget that that is the gift that you have to give the world, is to be unequivocally, unapologetically, and unwaveringly you. Because no one else can, only you. So on that note, I want to say thank you again for listening. Thank you for all of your support, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. I would not be the person that I am right now, and I certainly would not be this blessed. And it's all because of you that I have to thank you for it. So until next time, my friends, this is Samson Kitty Fox. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Bye. Love you so much. Meow meow.